Hello, friends. Today I'm going to tell you about a movie called Here Comes the Boom. Enjoy watching. 42-year-old biology teacher Scott Voss overslept and now rushes to work on a motorcycle. Even breaking a bunch of rules, Scott did not have time and made his way into the classroom through the window in front of the students. However, the headmaster was already waiting for him here. This is not the first teacher's lateness, and therefore he receives punishment in the form of work on vacation. Scott doesn't show much interest in his work. Instead, he prefers to read the sports news and ignore his students. Music teacher Marty Strapp is much more passionate about his work. Scott was also assigned bus duty today. He wanted to turn this case over to Marty, but he has his own worries. His 48-year-old wife texted him that she was pregnant. It was a big surprise for the old man. Scott unsuccessfully takes care of nurse Bella Flores, who turns him down from time to time. At a meeting of teachers, the director declares that he is forced to cut costs due to a budget deficit. All extracurricular activities are canceled, including the music program, which means that Marty will be out of work. The old man is outraged. The football team gets a new uniform every year, and 60 of his students have been playing dented instruments for a long time. Scott also stands up for the old man and accidentally lets slip that Marty's wife is pregnant, although he asked him not to talk about it. Alas, Scott's arguments rest on a huge sum, $49,000. That's how much money is required to continue the music program. The biologist offered his colleagues to raise money, but immediately realized that this was too much money for poor teachers. No one even came to the meeting on this issue, except for Scott and Bella himself. The woman appreciated that the biologist is trying to support the music teacher. Taking the opportunity, Scott invited Bella to his home to think over a plan, so to speak. Having been refused, Scott offers her to go on a date anyway if he throws the ball into the ring from above. He wanted to cheat, but still just fell on his belly. Scott came to his brother Eric hoping to get a job with him for part-time work, but alas, now the crisis is in the yard. But Eric offered to bet a couple $100 from the stash in the casino. Eric watches TV all day and does not help his wife to look after the children at all. In the evening, Scott went to work part-time. He helps immigrants prepare for the citizenship exam. It is difficult for him to find a common language with foreigners, and the salary is small. He received a check for $132. Then one of the students named Nico ran up to Scott. He is very worried about the future exam and asks to study with him separately. Scott took pity on the big guy and promised to come to Nico's house today. It turned out that Nico participated in fights without rules and now works as a mixed martial arts coach. Nico is in no hurry to start classes. First, they will watch the fight. Scott himself was engaged in wrestling as a student. Then the teacher finds out that the losing fighter will receive as much as $10,000. Scott shares this information with Marty. This is the only chance to save the music program. Scott tells the students that they will have a new teacher. Nico is upset. Scott tricked him. Then the man says that he plans to participate in the battles and asks Nico to train him. At first, the coach says that Scott is already old and has no experience, but a little later he agrees. And everything will start with a baptism of fire in a cage, in an amateur tournament. At home, in the basement, Scott hits Marty, wrapped in a mattress. The teacher understands that Scott will not learn anything in 2 days and suggests that he put pressure on the opponent psychologically, even before the start of the fight. The teachers came to an unknown place where chickens are running around, and the fighters are preparing for battle among the garbage. To intimidate, Scott pulled on a helmet with horns and shoulder pads with spikes. His opponent just shook his head. The fight started, and it lasted only 2 seconds. The fighter knocked Scott out with a blow from the knee, and he was taken away on a stretcher. The man also told Flores about his plan. She is skeptical. In the evening, Scott stopped by Marty's to say that nothing would work out. At home, the teacher was met by his wife, Molly. It turns out that Marty buys broken tools on the internet for cheap and repairs them for children. And yet, the woman does not know that soon her husband will be out of work. Scott realized that he should not give up and made the first payment, $900. After that, he came to work for Nico, and he teaches disco street fight, which is not MMA at all, but he knows a lot about martial arts, and he has something to teach the fat man. For example, how to get out of suffocating and painful techniques. After working out with Scott, Nico returned to his disco workouts. Another fight, although after the previous one, Scott is tormented by migraines. In the first round, he missed a lot of serious punches. Marty did not bring a chair to his friend, and he lay down right on the floor, not wanting to get up. Scott continues to catch punches with his face and miraculously survives to the end of the second round. Marty himself became a chair for him. During the final round, it rained heavily. The fighters slide and roll inside the cage, so the fight ended. In class, Scott noticed that Malia was upset. The father demands that the girl give up music and start working in his restaurant. He even considers school a waste of time. Scott himself had recently told her the same thing. Marty didn't make a very good assistant. This time he took a chair with him, but he forgot porridge in class, and Scott should have a good meal before the fight. He will have to eat applesauce, which is lying around in the car. Scott is waiting for his turn, and then the opponent came out to his aggressive song. The old man went to negotiate about other music and chose some nonsense of 69, similar to prayer. The third fight follows the same scenario. Scott does not want to raise his hands in any way, so most of the blows go to his face. Nico gives the ward advice, but all to no avail. So far, Scott has been saved by the end of the round. Then Scott's opponent completely relaxed, and then the man waved his hand with all his might and knocked out the fighter, and then also vomited stale applesauce on him. This footage got on the internet. School children now laugh at the teacher, but the guys from the music group know that it's all for them, and call the teacher a hero. So far, Scott has managed to earn $3,000. Each time Bella helps him and makes her contribution, $70 from the sale of cupcakes. They argue that over time, for some reason, they have become stale and lost interest in their work. Another unfortunate compliment, and Bella once again ignored her colleague. Scott asks the coach to teach him how to attack, not just defend. The winner gets paid more, and if you win more often, you can fight less. They will turn to another specialist, Mark, to work out the shock technique. Mark put two opponents against our hero at once, and they immediately started beating Scott. It didn't seem enough to the coaches, and another fighter entered the ring. Finally, the beating was over. Scott has passed the test, and Mark takes over his training. Dislocated shoulder, Bella diagnosed, and independently, though not without problems, set it back. The director called Scott into the office. The teacher is criticized for participating in battles. Allegedly, he is a disgrace to the school. And Malia's father also claims that Scott is turning his daughter against him. He needs Malia to stand behind the stove in the restaurant. For the first time in recent years, Scott has an enthusiasm to teach children something. To interest them, he is even ready to dance on the table. No matter how much Nico studies, he can't remember anything. Malia advises him to memorize the correct answers using the lyrics of his favorite songs. Scott manages to win sometimes and brings the deputy director new checks and a lot of cash. Finally, he learned to dodge punches, but it doesn't always save him from losing. Nico is studying according to a new method, and the biologist enthralls the children with classes. His successes did not go unnoticed by Bella, and she finally agreed to come to dinner with him. Eric cooks food and complains that he is unhappy. He inherited the business from his father, but it does not bring him any pleasure. Scott advises him to find his calling. Bella came, and she can't believe that a colleague cooked a meal so delicious. After dinner, the lady laughed at the fat man because he constantly gives up when he has taken on pain, and showed him how to beat correctly. After breaking the lamp, Bella went home. The next day, Scott came to his brother to talk. One day, Mark approached Scott and told him that they wanted to see him in the UFC. He could have gotten the same $10,000 for losing, but Nico refused and said it was too risky. Scott has not grown up yet, and he will simply be destroyed there. In the meantime, they have only $6,000 left to collect. One fight and everything will be ready. And Nico agreed to arrange everything. They met Joe Rogan at Malia's father's cafe, and the man is very grateful to Scott for his help. It turns out that Scott advised the man to take Eric as a cook in his Filipino restaurant. Rogan said that he knows his history with the music class, and therefore decided to give Scott a chance. The four of them go to Las Vegas. Bella worries about Scott because his opponent is strong and dangerous. Everyone at the hotel started eating cheesecake, but Scott can't. He had been on a healthy diet for 6 weeks. Suddenly, Bella called and said that the deputy director of the school had been arrested. He's been stealing from the school's budget for years, including he stole the money Scott was raising for the music program. It's over. But even now, the teacher does not intend to stop and give up the fight. His opponent, Ken Dietrich, is known for his cunning and unpredictability. Scott warmed up before the fight, and Dietrich intends to destroy the teacher. On the way to the ring, Scott saw that his song was being performed by the school orchestra. Joe Rogan personally organized such a surprise for him. Bella arrived too. Eric will watch the fight with his wife over a candlelit dinner. The beast Ken entered the cage. He intends to deal with the upstart in the first round. Scott does not look his opponent in the eye. All his thoughts are only about the music class. He intends to win the fight and earn $50,000. The round began, and Scott immediately missed his opponent's killer punch. Dietrich started beating the fat man and threw him on the mat. Scott was able to get to his feet, but it didn't make him feel any better. Scott barely survived the first round. He realized that something needed to change and finally began to attack. When Dietrich flew at him with his knee, the teacher grabbed him and threw him away, but the next blow of the big guy flew right on target. Scott missed a few punches, and after the end of the round cannot recover. The fat man is not even able to find his chair and wanders around the cage. Marty tells a colleague that he has already done a lot, inspired all the guys who are looking at him now. He is already a hero and can refuse to continue. Dietrich showed Scott respect, and the teacher himself gathered himself and continued to fight with his opponent. The fighters clinched, and then Scott kicked Dietrich and threw him on the mats. A biology teacher beats up a professional fighter, but then he gets into an insidious triangle. The fight was already almost lost, but then Scott picked up the big guy and threw him to the floor. Dietrich was knocked out, and the biologist won $50,000. Bella is finally ready to kiss the fat man, and the music class has been saved. The headmaster thanks Scott, but he still has to work during the holidays. But Nico successfully passed the exam and became a U.S. citizen. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.